Welcome everybody. Another video about continuation of my was recently published on February 11th, 2020, and I gave a brief introduction of this book in the previous video. It's a continuation of that video. So how significant it is. I only gave a brief introduction last time, but here today I will give you a little what is really inside this book. So I read from the blurb. This reading is, you can see in the blurb. Reading the philosophy of Nagarjuna in retrospective, his method of negation is variously explained in this book. So actually, the Nagarjunian philosophy, people who are readers of philosophy understand that he used a kind of negation method all throughout his work. And here, I try to uh, develop the discussion of this book from his idea of negation. So it is not just one type of negation. There are different type of negations. And how and what is the purpose of that negation? What is the purpose of those, um, you know, why he negate in actuality? This is what the book describes. How the application of tetralemma, four value structure, means Chatushkodi in Sanskrit, would give enough resources to expand our thoughts and how that could help us negate the binary either or structure of thought that demand theoretical postulations. Actually, he used tetralemma for negation method, and tetralemma, and there are two kinds of interpretation. There are mostly that is the two kind of interpretation that are used in the philosophical discourses today. And one is the interpretation using either or structure, which is in Greek called apophantic logos. You take only two. When you are taking either of the two, you are negating its opposite. And when you negate the opposite, you are trying to progress towards a higher level of thought, or you structure a thought, or in other ways, you structure a theory using this either or structure. So, why this is important for today? I will read it again when I come to that. Why it is important for today is because we have these scientific methods that is variously applied in our present world situation, where they use apophantic logos only. You take one aspect of the truth, one aspect of a phenomenal experience, and negate its opposite as false or untrue. And we take the truth for further analysis, for creating more, valid knowledge. So this interpretation is have its own demerits. That is what I was trying to expound in this book. But the fourfold method is a unique method. Notably, the art of logical negation used by Nagarjuna, employing neither nor structure, would help us to understand the middle path philosophy or Madhyamika philosophy clearly. So, what Nagarjuna trying to say or use this method of negation is to bring in what is called the middle path philosophy or the Madhyamika philosophy. So, the contention of Nagarjuna's idea is to find the untruth or um, the argument that led to finding a truth as a kind of choice selection of knowledge and creating a structure based on somebody's understanding for explaining it very clearly. Somebody is following an ideology like capitalism. What he or she would do is collect as much of evidence is available to structure a theory, and that theory substantiated his ideological position of capitalism. And that is a judgment. He created a judgment and he worked further on that. Similarly, if somebody is following another ideology, opposing ideology, uh, ideology opposing capitalism, since its origin is communism or socialism, and he will find sources of knowledge that would substantiate his position of the truth or validity of communism. So this is a simple way of understanding why this is having its own problem. This analytical method has its own problems. But Aristotle was a very seasoned, very intelligent, very notable philosopher who influenced the world of thinking for thousands of years. He has his own argument for that. I will come to that a little later. Metaphysical concepts of soul God is the basis of virtue ethics centered on transcendence of goodness, truth, beauty, unity, justice, being, etc. So actually what Aristotle wanted to say is that as per the life in the world is concerned, we can experience virtues. Like what is virtues? What are the virtues? This is truth, goodness, and beauty. And without virtues, a human person cannot live. And he wanted to restrict humans to believe that there are some virtues which are humanly understandable. He wanted to negate that. So what they did, not Aristotle alone, Plato and Socrates also, or philosophers before him, they considered they were all Hellenic thinkers. They believed in Hellenic mythology. They believe in the Orphic gods. So they believe that there is a transcendent world where this truth, goodness, beauty, justice, etc., can be completely discerned, perfectly understood. And that is with the gods. So we as humans have these traits because the gods have created world and they also created humans with a soul, and that soul is there in our body protecting our life, and that soul needs what is called these transcendental virtues. Virtues it needs. So to protect virtues, what a man should do in this life, he should try to understand the true nature of virtue. In fact, unlike his teacher, Plato, Aristotle believed that truth is the most important, the first principle in the truth, goodness, and beauty. For Plato, it was goodness, truth, and beauty. So he's believed that the goodness is equal to wisdom, and we have knowledge, and that knowledge will lead us to wisdom. And he actually have a concept called noble life, and it is used by religious philosophers who follow the Greek thought. So you can tell a lie if it is helping to somebody to realize the nature of wisdom. But Aristotle actually refuted it. He said only through truth, truth about the forms, truth about the worldly phenomena, what is happening in before us, or truth about the being. In fact, he used that being and unity. So every being is actually aspiring for its unity, and that is transcendent. Okay? So later being followed by, so this idea of the virtue ethical idea has been followed by actually by Christians, Jews, and Jews and Islamic thinkers. In fact, this idea is very variously accepted into the thoughts of Christians, uh, Islamic thinkers like Ibn Sina or Avicenna, um, Christian thinkers like Saint Augustine or John of Damascus. Actually, John of Damascus says God is wisdom, and the form of God is the form of wisdom. Like, so they have expounded this virtue ethics variously. Um, for example, Ibn Sina or Avicenna says that the nature of God, Allah, is, is something near to the goodness that no human can achieve. Right? So the religious philosophers, in fact, worked on this foundational ideas. The conception of Atman Brahman is the foundation of Vedic philosophy. Uh, philosophy philosophers' understanding of transcendence as truth, consciousness, and bliss. In fact, instead of truth, goodness, and beauty, in Indian context, especially in the Vedic tradition, they believe that Sat Chit Ananda means truth, consciousness, and bliss, or Ananda, or what is called beauty, presented by beauty in Nagarjuna, on the other hand, employs negative dialectics to confute the logical structure of either or that demand metaphysical concepts. So, this is very, very elaborately done in Buddhist discourses. Buddha always refuted the idea that there is some transcendent subjectivity completely controlling the worldly existence. This is a consistent position of the Buddhists. There are no comparison to this Buddhist position except maybe the Zoroastrian idea of Ahura Mazda is the controller of wisdom, and that wisdom is available to humans to work on and realize. Otherwise, the Buddhist concept is so uh, unique. The four value logical structure. He introduced the transcendence as wisdom and compassion. So, in fact, if you take truth, goodness, and beauty, or Satchitananda, it is wisdom and compassion for the Buddhist uh, to as as substituting what is called the transcendence. This book uses Nagarjunian art of negation to reread his philosophy differently to discern the concept of emptiness. Actually, what is there in um, uh, Nagarjuna's philosophy is the conception of emptiness. As I told in the last lecture, that talk, the conception of emptiness is a unique feature of the Buddhist discourses, Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist thought. And the conception of emptiness is actually explaining what is the dependent nature of entities in the world. So, Nagarjuna, in one of his verses in Mula Madhyamika Karika, says that Eha Pradita Samyutpadaha Shunyadatam Prachakshamahe. We say what is Shunyada is what is dependent co-arising. What is dependent? Every entity in the world are dependent on other entities, other things. And everything is co-arising. It is like very simple way of explaining that. Look at a lamp. See, lamp is dependent on the oil, a wick, vessel, and a comfortable flow of oxygen in a room. If any of these things are not available, the lamp won't burn. Similarly, any entity in the world is actually dependent on other entities. Okay? Dependent on cause. So if you take that lamp without wick, without air, without oil, you cannot conceive it. You understand? So that lamp is actually empty. So this is what is called dependent co-arising and emptiness. So he says, this is what we say as emptiness. So no entity in the world are independent. Okay? It is dependent on something. So this aspect, actually, for example, this cup, for example, this cup is a cup because it holds. But if I smash this cup, that cupness is gone. So cupness is dependent on this material that made the cup, and that handle and the thing, the liquid that is there inside, and the cupness is dependent on that. So we can only conceive cupness based on that. We cannot actually conceive cupness just per se. So he says that if you remove all that, the cup is gone. Okay? So that is what is called emptiness. And he says that saprajnaptahi upadaya, if you dependent on that prajnapti, sa eva madhyamika, madhyama. Everything will be middle. Everything is actually dependent. Everything is existing dependent on other entities. So he actually tried to explain. So what is a cup? Cup is actually not the material it has, not the handle it has, not the form it has. When everything comes together, the cup is formed. So the co-dependent evolution of various elements of subjectivity, self, and elements of objective experiences in the dominion of the subjective self. So actually, what we are conceiving as subjects is very much connected with what you can perceive. I can perceive certain object. I cannot perceive, for example, virus or bacteria that is there on this table. But I can observe this mouse and this computer and this table thing because my subjective consciousness or subjective uh, self can perceive these things. At the same time, I need to have these objects to perceive. So, what are perceived as objects or phenomena, objective phenomena, are a dependent co-arising of all these things. My subjective self, Nagarjuna or Buddha says that there is no subjective self or Atman. They have a hierarchy theory, but they divide this subjective self into five aggregates. So we believe that the five aggregate dependent on other. For example, out of the five aggregates, all the five aggregate dependent on the objects that is perceived gives a kind of form. There is a kind of on being of the form. So I tried to develop a theory, a dominion of subjectivity theory in this book, and this book is um, uh, trying to develop certain ideas, especially the Nairatmya doctrine or idea in Buddhism, and I try to put why in the world of today, where we have scientific theories controlling almost everything, why we need a Nagarjunian perspective of tetralemma to understand the phenomenal world that we experience as real, and why, what are the real problem between the today's scientific uh, knowledge, let's say, scientific philosophical understanding, or the scientific systems that we have developed, and the original perspective or ideas of Aristotle. And there are so many different kind of reading of Aristotle. Uh, we follow our scientific philosophy based on the reading of Hegel, or maybe later Marx, on the Aristotelian doctrines or Aristotelian thought. So, what is the real issue in scientific thought? I will read a quote from Herbert Marcose's uh, one-dimensional man. In One-Dimensional Man, Marcos writes, Aristotle's apophantic logos mostly influences the modern Western philosophy than Plato's dialectical logic. Aristotle uses the term apophantic logos in order to distinguish a specific type of logos, speech, communication, which discovers truth and falsehood from truth and falsehood. So actually, you can discern only truth from its falsehood. I don't think you cannot live in a world where only the conception of God is prevailing. You need to have a conception of devil, or you cannot actually accept goodness or good without knowing what is bad. So this is the nature of apophantic logos, and they reject the untruth and accept the truth and formulate the theories based on truth. So this aspect is completely applied in our scientific systems. But at the same time, scientific theories are not looking for a transcendent entity or to explain God or explain the transcendence or transcendent virtues, or even if they are not having a discourse on virtues even in the world. They are trying to find the truth about the objective world. For that reason, they objectify everything. And what is the objectified uh, world situation is very easily understandable. For example, psychology is an objectified science. You objectify a man's behavior, his mental states, and make theories out of that. In fact, our subjective self or mind is actually always transforming, always changing. Actually, in Buddhist understanding, somebody has wrote that 24 hours can be divided into 6 million moments, according to. So each moment is changing. So you cannot objectify things like that. So everything is objectified. For example, another one objectification is you are a Christian, you should behave like this. You are a Hindu, you should behave like this. You have a this objectified situation is actually creating conflicts. You know, in fact, the human nature is not so different if you take in this way. But the theory is built on objectified entities is actually uh, contradicting each other. And that is a big problem with the scientific world order. So the modern world systems, um, according to a very well respected social philosopher, Immanuel Wallenstein, is based on the exclusive scientific theories. And he has written, I think, four-volume series for what do you call the world system analysis. And he says that the present world order, we use the Western scientific understanding of the world order. And it may be very different from the truth. And actually, this was actually countered. This theoretical formulations were countered by scientific philosophers themselves, like Thomas Kuhn has written a book called Structure of Scientific Revolution, in which he says that we create paradigms, we present that paradigm, and if many people follow that paradigm, it becomes a theory. So the theories are actually not well sourced, well discussed. In this context, Nagarjuna's four value logical analysis is very applicable to the world situation today, because what he is trying to say is that when you take a judgment, we should in turn understand the difficulties in coming to one particular judgment. For example, if you say, just take an example of a sweet. Some people, a sweet is the best thing in the world. They reject, they accept sweet, and they reject all other taste other than sweet to form their idea, form their judgment that sweet is the best thing in the world. But a person who has an elderly person who may have diabetes. Sweet is like a poison for him. So he think that poison, sweet is something which he hate. He never wanted. He think that this is the worst taste. So he make a judgment according to some taste like maybe bitter or something. He create a theory based on that. So somebody who is so in this case a person who loves sweet hate maybe bitterness, so he or she likes sweets instead. But some person who is an occasional lover of sweetness, for him it is both good and bad, and he understands that if he takes too much he may fall sick, he may get diabetes or symptoms of diabetes. But for a person who has not tasted sweet at all, it is immaterial. Okay? There can be people who don't taste sweet. Okay, take not sweet, somebody who drink a beer. So somebody who like beer, he become a beer fanatic, he drink only beer. Some people who drink some other drink, coffee or something, they don't like beer. The taste of beer really averting them. An occasional drinker, a party hopper, for him, beer is both good and bad. He is okay. But a person who never tasted beer, it doesn't matter him at all. He hasn't. It is a third person. So any aspect of life, anything in the world is like that. You can see it in the fourth perspective. And when you have this fourth perspective active, for example, if it is true, um, you can take as P. If it is untrue, you can take as negative P. If it is both true and untrue, you can take P and negative P. And if it is neither true nor non-true, neither true nor untrue, you can take it as the value will come to 0. And as you know, the 0 can take any value. You can add any value to a 0 value. So the 0 will change to that. You cannot multiply 0, you cannot divide 0. If you divide 0, it will become infinity, because any number of 0 you take, the 0 stays. Or if you multiply 0, it will naturally 0. But you can add one value to 0, and you cannot subtract a value from 0 because it is a pseudo value. -1 is a pseudo value. You cannot say I bought -1 apple. No, it's only a pseudo value. So you can add a value. So if you have analyzed sweet as P, and then you find that there is somebody who never tasted sweet or never drank beer, for him it is 0. So he can add another value to it. You can put a Q, and Q will be like T maybe. So you can analyze any number of any number of happenings or things or concepts into this fourfold analytical method, so that what you are going to get is a comprehensive understanding. And comprehensive understanding is what an intelligent man has to follow. This is what one of the position of Nagarjuna, one of his students, has written about it. True, not true, both true and not true, and neither true nor not true. In this order, learned people regard unity and eternity. It is in Sanskrit, it is Sat Asat, Sadasat Chedi, Sadasan Nedi, Chak Kramaka, Esha Prayojyo Vidvat. Vidvat means educated people or intelligent people. Um, when they encounter Egatvadishu Nityashaha. So, if it is eternity or singularity, uh, an intelligent person should actually apply the fourfold understanding. And what is that eternity or singularity? You know, in a world of today, we are trying to find a singular theory, and the singular theory is gut, grand unified theory of every theory is put together. And many philosophers like Stephen Hawking and many others have written against it. It is, they said that it is impossible to build a theory that is encompassing everything. And because it's beyond our, but still we are trying to structure singular theories, singularities, ideological systems. These ideological systems are actually formulating a bigger structure in our world. Now, with this technologization, we are actually aspiring or looking for a technological singularity that would encompass everything. And this technological singularity make every living being, especially human being, uh, to be, uh, subservient to this singularity. It is like, for example, maybe in the communist time, anyone who follow or live in a communist countries ideologically should be committed to this ideologies of communism, and he has to follow it madly. And when he follow it madly, he has to sacrifice his freedom. You know, he should be willing to, for example, in the time of nationalism in Europe, the nationalists actually ask people to come to war and die, and if you die for the sake of nationalism, your children, your family will be protected by the system. So, this kind of ideological systems are now waning its control in the world. And now there are other systems that are taking up, like, for example, a plutocracy is trying to control the world with their money. So, plutocracy is actually acting on. And if that is the case, how human freedom can be achieved? In last time, I was explaining about what if somebody says that either you are with us or against us, and when we have fallen into that situation, you will act in fear. And fear is, according to the Buddhist understanding or any philosophical understanding, is the enemy of human freedom or human life. So, Buddhism, in fact, the 12 prong dependent co-arising. The first thing is avidya or ignorance. From avidya, he says that our it matures. This avidya or ignorance will mature into fear and into deep fear, death, destruction, everything. So, in a world of today, we are following this fear as the fear psychosis as the biggest issue. And today we are in the corona situation. and we are all afraid of something. So our understanding of this uh, real situation is submerged by fear, and we are in an either or situation. So this is not going to help us in a way. If you are going to live in fear, the fear will control. So once somebody was telling me, like in a more in the future world, everything will be, watched. Your data will be collected, and you will be controlled by a surveillance system. I said that is a waste of money. You don't have to have that. You just create fear in the mind of people. They will behave whichever way you want to do. So it is not the surveillance system that is going to control you, but the fear of being watched will control you. And if like, see, nobody could make people sit and uh, look at somebody's data and analyze him, because this that itself needs huge resources. So what they are going to do, if these control systems are going to be active, what they are going to do is they institute what is called algorithm. So they use this algorithmic technique of collecting data and putting. If you really analyze today's situation, especially the financial world, algorithm has actually destroyed, you know, economic, economic, what is it called, the economy of the world today. So people should not be get, you know, latched on to this kind of systems, because, as I've been telling, human, why people fear, why people have such deep fear in us, because our consciousness, according to some of the neuroscientists, it has 200 million years of development. It means that human intelligence has developed 200 million years of development. And we have a lot of fear ingrained into our consciousness, you know. So even whoever say you should not fear, uh, the fear will come out, because it is, for example, I tell you one, in Sophocles' this drama, Oedipus, this Oedipus was so scared when oracle said that you are going to marry your mother. Why it was scared? Because there was some fear about this situation in the consciousness, not only of Oedipus, but almost everyone, in the world. So that fear is actually restricting us not to do any bad things. You understand? You cannot do negative things or bad things. You cannot work against your fear. You need to know how to manage your fear. And that is what most of the philosophers say, that you can manage fear. For example, Greek thought, if my reading of Greek thought is like that, he says that they say that you can manage fear through knowledge. That is why Socrates says that I know that I don't know. It means that with the available sources in the world, I cannot know about the transcendent truth. Similarly, in Buddhism, they say that ignorance has to be removed with knowledge. So you have an inner knowledge that is free to know more. And you can address the problem of fear by knowing more. And this analytical method, the fourfold analytical method, which is introduced by Nagarjuna, is in fact work to help you to address your fear. For example, one of my friend was so petrified with this corona thing. So I told him, why you are petrified? You have knowledge available, internet is open. So you see the real data, how many people are dying and what kind of people are dying. And you analyze it and you analyze and find your chances to become a victim of this. So if you are trying to fan up your hair, if you are having such sickness, you should not go out and get it. And most of the people who are dying are old people. So you are old, you are sick, you should be very careful. You are young, but you have a severe lung problem, you should be careful. So this is why how you have to understand this situation. You cannot actually just live in absolute fear, and that will make us crazy. And that is the reason why people are suiciding. People are falling into what is that depression. People are confused. They live like zombies, no life. So this thing actually, in our understanding, in the Nagarjuna understanding, we should know how to manage the fear with knowledge. I hope this book is introduced well. Uh, Maybe in another occasion I'll talk more about this. This is available with Sanctum Books, Delhi, and it is also available with um, uh, Amazon and other major book selling platforms. And if you are interested in knowing more about Nagarjunian thought, Aristotelian thought, Hegelian thought, what is Nairatmya, no soul doctrine of Buddhism, and what is the transcendental wisdom and compassion. All I try to bring in to this book, and I hope you will people who like philosophy. So I also given another discussion on see this four value logic is actually were introduced into Greek thought. Pyrrhonian skepticism. I also have written about Pyrrhonian skepticism. I also have written about the academic skepticism. Academic skepticism and Pyrrhonian skepticism are different. Pyrrhonian skepticism and Nagarjunian skepticism are different. Skepticos, as I explained last lecture, is what is called investigation. So you have to investigate more in the case of your thought become in either or situation. If you have to take the either or situation. Also, I have spoken about what is this either or situation because you are fallen. You will be fallen into what is called um, a matrix like situation. I use the term matrix instead of because this matrix is made it's made from the idea of the cave example of Plato. But Matrix is a movie you can see. So you have that situation because if you are fallen into this either or situation, you will live in ignorance and fear. And Plato has written very clearly that the fear is like darkness, and darkness is always collude, and you should show courage to get out of that. Maybe another occasion I will talk about that. Um, thank, thank you. that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and that's it.